Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yuri Folari. Labour matters because the president was meeting with Labour all in a bid to, avert the protest. People shouldn't call it a strike, I have heard when I was speaking with some Labour officials. But so the protest, the president met with the leadership of TUC and NLC to see if we could avert the protest scheduled for today. And, well, signals are a bit confusing. I'm not too sure where exactly we are. When you look at, on the one hand, we got a release that the protest has been done away with, one way or the other. But then again, when you look at the newspapers, it's not as clear-cut as all of that. We'll try and find out exactly where we are. But the one thing that is sure is that the president did meet with the leadership of Labour and TUC. What is the result of all of that? Well, interested parties are using differing language. So let me quickly introduce our guests today. Deputy General Secretary NLC, Comrade Ismail Bello, is in the studio with me here. Good morning to you, Comrade.
Good morning, Uncle Falari. Good morning, Nigerian.
To have you. And in Abuja, Mr. Nii Akinshiju, a veteran journalist, writer, policy analyst. Good morning to you, Mr. Akinshiju.
Good morning to you, sir. Good morning, Nigerians.
It is our pleasure. Okay, let me start off with the difficult one. Comrade, you are Deputy General Secretary of NLC.
Yes.
Has the protest now been suspended?
Well, as we are here, the National Executive Council meeting is holding in Abuja right away.
Okay.
All the affiliates of Congress are attending that meeting. All the state councils who took part in yesterday's protests across the country are attending. So it is that meeting that we take the feedback from our leaders about the engagement with Mr. President yesterday. And hopefully we'll be able to make a pronouncement after that meeting.
Okay, there's a lot of political speak in there, and I think this is because this is at such a high level that one has to be careful, but because you didn't say what I had expected to hear, which would have matched with the release we got from the federal government, one, bearing the name of Dele Alake, special advisor to the president, on information and all of that, saying that the protest had been called off. But then the newspapers this morning are saying that...
I think there's a difference when you make a commitment that, because our leaders, the leadership of Congress and TUC released a statement yesterday. And I'll just give you a snippet of that statement, that the discussion with Mr. President was a bit fruitful to the extent that there's a clear framework for continued engagement with government.
Okay.
That was a very positive outcome of that meeting.
Indeed.
The second one is Mr. President's assurance that the Port Harcourt refinery will be fixed before the end of December. That's a very positive outcome of that engagement. And that the wage review would take immediate priority.
As Mr. President stated in his broadcast.
He reaffirmed that to our leadership yesterday. And then to develop a quick roadmap for CNG, which is an alternative to the very expensive petrol. So on the strength of this, I think our leadership was...
It's a matter of process, due process.
Exactly. The meeting is going on. If I'm not in the studio, I was part of that meeting until I walked into the studio.
People are around the country, those that can attend physically and those...
Exactly. Our colleagues are in Abuja. I joined from Lagos by Zoom. I have to leave the Zoom meeting to be in the studio. So...
to give us this positive news.
Exactly.
So all other things being equal,
yes, with this good feedback from Mr. President, it's just a matter of presenting this to the House to say this is what commitment we got from Mr. President and colleagues. Let's
sheath your swords.
Let's move. Getting that from Mr. President was quite positive.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Akinshiju, cheering news, I would say, but one of my concerns, Mr. Akinshiju, was that the positive tone of a statement that was seen yesterday, albeit I don't know where the typographical error came from, The statement was yesterday, but it was dated 3rd of August. And it was saying...
Maybe because it was a late night news.
Yes, yes. But it was received and circulated way before midnight, you know, so one understands that. So, Mr. Kishiju, as I was saying, I just was a bit surprised that all the newspapers are not carrying it the way one had expected it to be, in line with the statement that had been released and that was bearing Mr. Dele Alake's name. But having heard from Labour this morning, having heard from the Labour man in studio this morning, he says that all other things being equal, it's up. Give me your impressions. What do you think, sir, about the state of affairs?
Thank you very much. I don't actually understand Labour's agenda, but from the submission of the comrade in the studio, that they have now decided to adopt peaceful negotiation and dialogue, I believe that is the way forward, because the circumstances, you know, do not inform a need for any aggravated standoff between Labour and the federal government. As far as I'm concerned, the federal government had acted in good faith. Acted in good faith to the extent that the president addressed, you know, the Nigerian people in a very conciliatory tone, and actually opened up that address by requesting that Nigerians would join him in the journey of the vision, you know, that is trying to sell to us. The vision about restructuring and perhaps reconstructing, you know, the basis of our economy. And if we all subscribe to the fact that our economy had been challenged structurally over so many years, and that there's a need to actually restructure it so that it can have form and substance, and in a way that it can also sustain the kind of quality of life Nigerians desire, in a way that it would also, you know, deburden the Nigerian people of being dependent on a single commodity. So, if on the long run, or even medium to long-term basis, we are able to create an economy that is dependable, that can produce, and that is highly productive, and more than that, can create jobs, you know, for Nigerians. I think whatever we are going through at this time, and in the words of the president, is a temporary situation. So while I am concerned as any Nigerian about cost of living, increased cost of living, but to my mind, this is a transition. And in that transition, as the president also requested, there is a need for us to hook in, to link into the vision of the president, knowing that eventually the kind of policies that are being rolled out will enable the economy in a way that it will create sufficiency in perhaps all segments of the economy. So I am praying and I'm appealing to Labour that, yes, please consider dialogue. Let us stop this possibility of a strike coming up. It's not an option. Let us stop this protest. It affects production per day. What we have lost in the economy yesterday, no one can still quantify. And then going forward, I will request Labour to also apply intellect research here. I know for certain that Labour has a strong institutional-based intellectual currency. And to that extent, I believe that these palliatives and other policies that had been rolled out by the federal government should be brought and, of course, pass through the litmus test of implementation, of possible implementation. So how would this affect the Nigerian people, the Nigerian economy going forward, all these palliatives? You know, how for instance, would the 3,000 expected buses that will be provided, you know, by the federal government, how would it affect that vehicle assembly or vehicle production segment of our economy? How would the 250,000 seedlings and tons of grains and fertilizer affect the food market and the agricultural ecosystem? These are intellectual research-based, you know, positions that we would expect from from Labour, not only to enlighten us, but to also persuade us that we have a Labour movement that is not just about, engaging, but actually constructively engaging.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you very much.
I don't know where I'm going to take it off in terms of the input that he has made. No matter what happens, dialogue is key.
That is right.
in our situation. And Labour had initiated the process of dialogue well ahead before now. But unfortunately, we were not making progress. There was no serious commitment on the part of those who are representing government to live up to some of the initial understanding that was struck on June 5.
Okay.
And that led on June 5.
But the president's broadcast of 2 days ago must have wiped the slate
the president can give a broad policy direction. But people must sit down to work out the nitty-gritty of a policy direction.
But the president's speech was pretty much, it encompassed everything Labour had
he said the broad policy direction. But you need, like he said, you need to see it. How do you deal with mass transit in a manner that the impact will be felt deeply in the economy? How do you deal with the question of education? How do you deal with support association with government? Several committees have been set up in this direction. And like he alluded, there are quite a number of professionals we have in our midst. Possible, we're going to set the template for conversion of vehicles to CNG, which is far cheaper. Okay. Immediately, we're going to set up the template for review of wages. Immediately, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. So, and that gave our leadership the confidence to call the meeting that they have called today, to be able to report back and say, no, let's return back to negotiation. We have the assurance from Mr. President, and we can deal with all these issues. And we are prepared for discussion and for dialogue.
Indeed. So, as you said, all other things being equal, because you said it was a result of the fruitful meeting with the president that led Labour to set up this meeting.
It was actually an emergency meeting.
And the National Executive...
Emergency National Executive Council meeting.
Oh,
to repart the meeting and the engagement with Mr. President yesterday, and then to set the tone for productive dialogue.
Productive dialogue. Effectively, protest over, dialogue continue.
Sure.
That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, because when the president assumed office on May 29, he said subsidy is gone. Between May 29 and now, it's over 2 months. You live in Lagos, you can imagine the debilitating impact of these policies on very ordinary Nigerians, commuting to work, cost of food items, and all of that. So the implication is very hard on the people, and so we need to move very quickly to consummate some of these ideas that are put on the table.
Dayo in Ikorodu, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How are you, Mr. Yomi?
Yes. Please go ahead now. Thank you for calling in.
Yes. With what?
We can't hear. We can't hear. I'm sorry. There's no mistake. We can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it's better.
All these things should have been put to rest. But the problem, that with the present government, looking at it, there is this trust deficit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
There is this trust deficit. And that is why every government, I'm not talking of Tinubu administration, I'm talking of the present government, talk is cheap. They will tell them everything that will make Labour go back to their trenches. Do they actually walk the talk? That's the problem, the trust deficit. Otherwise, the broadcast of Mr. President is enough to allay the fear of Labour. They are talking of a Port Harcourt refinery. That's what Mr. President promised them before the end of December. And we actually know it's going to be ready by that time. That is the fear. And all these things they are saying, all these conversations, are we actually sure that towards the end of the time, something will not happen again, and then they will push it to look at Govt refinery. When it was being, before this Govt refinery will fill the market. Today now we are not hearing that crude is the thing that's being, before you know it, Govt refinery will be going to 2027.
All right then. Okay. Thank you very much for calling in. The main point there being that ordinarily the president's broadcast had addressed all that Labour's concerns, but you've also commented on that. Okay, we're back, and we have with us Mr. Ni Akishiju, veteran journalist, writer, policy analyst, and Deputy General Secretary, NLC, Comrade Ismail Bello, who has been explaining what, if one can call it a mix-up. It's not really a mix-up. I guess it's about language, and people wanted to be careful, but
it's about our own process.
And also about processes, yes. So NLC has its own processes, and so, and I think as I read Comrade Ajero saying on the paper of yesterday that no one person can call it off. So I guess we know the form, and by now say, okay, it looks as if indeed the release was true, but Mr. Ajero is saying that staying on due process, we can't here declare the protest over. We're going to have to revert, as the comrade had just told us.
An emergency was called for 10 a.m. this morning.
That was called for 10 a.m. this morning.
Bringing together all labor leaders across Nigeria.
Whereupon
those who could get to Abuja got to Abuja. Those who couldn't get connected on Zoom.
And then it will be officially pronounced
at the end of the meeting, I'm sure it will address.
So Labour resumes dialogue with the federal government.
That's key.
That's key,
yeah.
And that's the projection. So people should forget about protest, at least going forward from there.
Hoping that we also have a productive outcome from the dialogue process. Speedily.
Exactly.
Speedily, because the pain on the Nigerian people about this policy is really very deep. Very, very deep.
And Mr. Kishiju, as Labour is saying, they are staying on their constituency, which is the welfare of the Nigerian worker. And I think Comrade Bello also agrees that, look, when you look at it, the president's speech of 2 days ago, it was an umbrella over all of the demands of NLC. But they have to be worked out. And NLC also is saying that it's not just government that has due process. Even we have our own due process. Ajero is quoted in the papers as saying that no one person can call off that strike. But no problem. We'll probably be hearing it later on. But we thought that Labour was going to dig in. In fact, that was the reason for the first caption that had to be removed, because as of this morning, it had become a lot clearer that well, actually, Labour is just insisting on due process, and by and large, the protest is over. It's just that dialogue shall resume, and people are looking for Labour, and indeed all of Nigeria is wanting that as quickly as possible, those things that had been promised by Mr. President are now, indeed begin to be implemented.
I seriously I don't think there's a strong ground, for Labour to want to continue the protest or even embark on a strike. The president's speech, as you noted, more or less created an environment of environment of engagements, appropriate positive engagement with Labour and even the larger Nigerian populace. But I feel, that in character, Labour just wanted to flex muscle to show that it has a position. It was the interesting aspect of the negotiation or even the direct engagement with Mr. going on at the Port Harcourt refinery. So the Labour itself has direct, direct barometer to measure whatever is happening at the Port Harcourt refinery. Now, going beyond that, I am requiring Labour to go beyond engagement, to go and become a major partner with the president and the government in creating the enablement, that is required at this time. Because if we are talking about recreating the economy, it is actually trying to redeem, what our situation will be. And therefore, there should be a partnership, a functional partnership between Labour and government. One, and how do we see that partnership happening? Let Labour, in truth and indeed, represent the Nigerian people by monitoring the implementation processes and templates of all the palliatives and other policies, that had been announced, so that in a way we will know that the Nigerian people will know that the labor is actually being functional at this time. I want to see, after the meeting of the Labour Congress, of the leadership of the Lagos Labour Congress today, that each of those palliatives or each of those measures being put in place are put under the microscope and are, of course, properly, dissected, positions made, the possibilities of proper implementation, the possibility of success, derived and analyzed and put in the public space. So it's not just going to be about what government is saying.
Gentlemen, I beg your pardon. All this time, sorry, comrade. Comrade wants to come in, and but I have
so that
somebody has been waiting.
You
won't lose it because you wanted to object to Labour was flexing. You wanted to object to that, so you're going to come back to that. But I don't want to lose Mr. Bubakar in Kaduna. Okay. He's been on for a while. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Bubakar.
Good morning, Uncle Yuri. How everything, sir?
Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you very much. And a very welcome to this, your guest, Comrade Ismail. Okay. You see, it's a very happy something to hear that Labour is dialoguing with government, and maybe they may suspend the strike, which nobody like it because it may lead to another thing which we are not happy with. So dialogue is better than this protest. But I want to commend the Labour Union, and at the same time want to remind them that truly it is not only active workers that are in difficulties whenever some of this type of problem happens, because sometimes they forgot to remember the retired civil servant, especially the retired civil servant under contributory pension scheme. These people, in fact, they are not different from destitute on the street, because as you retire, you contribute your pension, and there is no any increment. If you are placed on 10,000 pension per month, I'm telling you, for more than 20 years or any years you will be on that pension, no increase. There is no room for increment. Those people are suffering in silence. No union remember them. Federal government is not remembering about them. They are only left to the insurance company. Nothing again. They don't gain anything.
Okay.
They don't earn anything.
Point has been taken, Mr. Bubakar, calling in from Kaduna. Thank you very much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you. Before I lose my thread of thought.
Okay.
First, that Labour is embracing dialogue at this point in time is also a show of appreciation of the commitment to drive in a new direction. If you know the traditional position of Labour on the issue of subsidy, we will have just told Mr. President it's not possible. But we didn't say that. Yeah, we will have just said it's not possible. Well, we didn't say that. Within the context of the policy changes and the policy reforms we are doing, the people must matter. I think that is the issue.
That is the big one. Okay, welcome back, and still with Mr. Akishiju and Comrade Bello of the NLC. Actually, this is a topic that everybody will be calling. I promised that I was going to come back to the comrade, but you know what I'm going to do, sir, with your indulgence. Let me take the caller that came in while we were on break, and then you just take all of the comments. But hold on, sir.
One issue of pension and...
Okay, just hold it. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Good morning to your guests.
Yes.
Especially to the Labour man. I've listened to his presentation. But one question I want to ask him is this. What he's saying now, is it different from what the president had said? The president had made a broadcast that encompassed all those things he's complaining. And they were being discussed with various committees. Rather than NLC to wait and see to the implementation, and in an advisory position, they are so quick to be belligerently threatening brimstone and fire. It looks to me that the NLC is more interested in disorder in our society than the upgrading of our facilities and human resources we have in this country. It's not all about strike. Labor everywhere. We know labor in other clients. They are part and parcel of governance. They offer ideas for the government to proceed for the betterment of the people. But this one of using strike at the slightest opportunity to crown the country, it doesn't appear to be patriotic.
All right, Mr. George, I want to thank you very much for calling in. You heard the comments.
I do. There are several issues cropping up, but
Okay.
I think in terms of dealing with it, let me
pick them up one.
Yes. I think first and foremost, people should understand that it takes two to dialogue in terms of the willingness and the preparedness on the two sides. One indication that Labour was prepared for dialogue on this was not engaging government on the issue of subsidy itself, because our traditional position will have been that it's not possible to put ₦1 on petrol without discussion. But that's a very positive indication of Labour's willingness to dialogue. Yes, we proceeded. We started the process. We had some preliminary initial understanding. But development thereafter showed that on the part of government, there is no clear commitment to those. So we will see
at that time.
Yes, at that time, to the agreement that was preliminarily reached on June 5. Remember, this policy has been in place for 2 months.
That's right.
Nigerians couldn't get to work. Nigerians are paying 3, 4, 5 times for food. So when you are dialoguing, you must have at least the end in mind. Okay, by 8 weeks, that was the initial period. We spent 6 weeks, we can't see anything concrete. So we should sit and be clapping for the government. Is that what they want? So we now said, okay, with these 2 weeks remaining, we need to put pressure on government to act swiftly. And we still serve this notice. They said we shouldn't go on strike, but nobody can ask citizens not to protest. So we took to the street to let Mr. President know that whosoever is working for him may not be giving him the right information. And thank God the president picked it and said, okay, I will deal with this, I will deal with this. But those are general policy statements. We will still need to do the nitty-gritty and return to negotiation. And
to work out the implementation
exactly.
of these ideas.
So when our leadership met with him yesterday, he spoke in his address, if you remember, there was nothing on petrol on the refineries. We make that demand that you can't be subjecting Nigeria to rising price of petrol without dealing with local supply. Local supply, Dangote is a businessman. It's for profit. It's only government-owned refineries that government can use to modulate the impact of rising prices.
We don't have any.
We have 4.
But, you know.
We have 4 non-functional.
They are non-functional.
But government can make a commitment to make them functional. It's not rocket science.
Okay.
Government build these facilities for the benefit of Nigerians. And Mr. President has committed himself to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which mandates him to deploy the resources of the nation for the benefit of the people. So he has that commitment, and he kept reaffirming that.
Exactly.
But he's not going to be the one that will work out the nitty-gritty of this. Those who are having discussion with Labour were not showing the kind of commitment that we expect will give us speedy result. Speedy result that will address the pain that Nigerians were facing with rising transportation costs, with rising food costs. Nobody can deny.
Yes, but all of that, I would imagine, was before the meeting of Labour TUC leadership with Mr. President, whereupon they were now reassured.
That's what I said. Our leadership communicated to us. They also released a statement that our meeting and our engagement with Mr. President last night is reassuring for us to resume dialogue. So I think that point is clear enough. And let me say, nowhere in the world, nowhere is the economy left to market forces completely.
Indeed.
So this engagement with Mr. President will continue.
All right.
Because we will need at some critical moment to call on Mr. President to intervene in the economy for the benefit of Nigerians.
Okay.
We cannot subject the country economy totally to market forces. Nowhere is that done.
Okay. Before I go over to Mr. Akinshiju in Abuja studio, Elder David in Alimosho has called in. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Yorin. God bless you, sir.
Thank you for calling, Elder.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Alhaji Bello.
Comrade. Comrade Bello.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Bello.
Okay.
So, anyway, your conduct yesterday was very good, but it is the strike issue I'm against. And I want to tell you people that what you are demanding for is correct, but the timing was wrong. The president have just come in. People could allow it for some time. And you people are very lucky. You are dealing with a man who understands the problem of Nigeria. When people get there yesterday, you see I receive you people. And I wish Obasanjo could have done that the time of Oshimole. Yes, that was 2000. The past government have done that. And I want people to know too, that we are what of we are pensioners. That Obasanjo sees our pension. I retired in 1998. 2004, he liquidated 34 parastatals. And we could not get our pension, if not because of this government of APC 2015. That started to enroll us on pension and others. So people should appreciate it's not issue of strike. So you people should be patient with him. And talk about pension, talk of the jobless youth who were trained by this old pensioner. If those parastatal pass a job close down with article, 34 parastatal, Alaja Steel and others, we are there today. There will be no joblessness. And these youth have no job. What of the market women and farmers that produce up, that bring the food? So it's not only the worker we push or actually covered. I was in the
Okay, Elder. Thank you very much for calling in, Elder. Mr. Kijiju, is there any, Nigerians are feeling the way they are feeling. So I was wondering if there's a way, can Labour be cut any slack? Because it doesn't look as if the whole idea of going on a protest was massively popular across board, up and down the country. And Elder David, for instance, has just, exemplified that a bit. But Labour, you've heard Labour's presentation, that what we're doing here is our job. And, we just need to assure that the worker is not really totally beaten underground and all that kind of thing. Is there, I know that's not the way it usually works, but if you were to make a case for Labour, which not very many people seem to be wanting to do, can Labour be cut some slack?
Well, of course, this form of engagement, protest, strikes, are principal tools, for Labour to use. But again, the timing, just like the last caller noted, the timing may be wrong because, again, it's also in the work manual of Labour that at a point in time there should be serious consideration given to constructive engagement. Constructive engagement is usually enabled in the circumstances of where clarity is yet to be given in a position that will be taken. So where there is a process ongoing and there is no clarity on the side of government or the party that is being negotiated with, that is when, of course, you review what are the issues and what are the prospects of these issues, and of course what will be the likely outcome of those issues, and then it will be based on that you take a position. What Nigerians are saying, of course, as aggregated by many of our callers here, is that the president had either preemptively or by whatever means had aggregated all these feelings and had come out in the broadcast to Nigerians and explained himself. It's not just about talking about the palliatives, but talking about the background to what led to the palliative, and also asked for Nigerians to trust him in such a way that while concluding the speech, he said he was going back to work, to make these things possible.
Right.
Now that's quite emotive. It creates connections, emotional connection. So I think before Labour, for Labour to go on that kind of strike, it is essential that they look at the context of what that protest will lead to.
Mr. Kisiju, I also want you to realize that our pressure, our processes, our strike, our protest, is not destructive.
Okay, that's important.
Those are measures to put in check those who have the power to serve the public good.
Okay.
That's those in government.
Okay.
Now, why am I saying this, sir? I need to conclude this. I need to conclude this.
In 15 seconds. 15 seconds.
You can blame labor, you can do this, you can do that. But there are several things that government needs to do, and somebody needs to put pressure on government to do them.
Okay.
One of them is to cut the cost of governance, because it's the ordinary people that are paying the price now.
Okay, you come back to
rich,
develop that.
The powerful, the politicians must pay the price of reforms.
Okay, you're gonna develop that. I'm gonna bring it back to you. Good morning, Mr. Mukhtar in Kano.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Good. I very much appreciate your discussions. Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Uncle Yori. How are you doing?
Yes, sorry, that's an echo. Please ignore the echoes. Thank you very much.
Okay. I appreciate what you are discussing, but the most important thing for us to appreciate, the most important thing for us to appreciate is that labor is a partner in progress. Labor is a partner in progress with the federal government. They are all partners in progress. They all want to develop the economy. Now, we should know that the first thing Mr. President is supposed to do is to say that he sacrifices his first 6 months' salary because of the oil subsidy. And he will now reduce the cost of governance. Because once he reduces the cost of governance, now the salaries of the ministers, the governors, and all those who are holding key political positions should sacrifice. And the reduction of the cost of governance will help the economy. And the common man will feel that, yes, everybody is being involved. But as far as it goes on, without this sacrifice, without this reduction of the cost of governance, and it increases day by day. You see the convoy of cars following a minister, the convoy of cars following the vice president. It's a lot. Fueling is a matter of money. Okay. So why shouldn't we reduce the cost of governance?
All right.
If we do that, it will help the economy. But not always the common man that suffers, that queued and reported the government.
Okay, thank you very much, Mukhtar in Kano. Appreciate the call that government can also do more than it is hitherto, to reduce the size of governance and save us more money. Mr. President was saying that up to $1 trillion had actually been saved.
Yeah, that's coming largely from the poor, because the poor are the people sacrificing, such that the minimum wage of 30,000 is completely impossible in Lagos, for instance, to take a worker to work 5 times in 1 month. Practically impossible.
As you know, 5 times in 1 month.
In 1 month.
But people are making efforts to whatever we can.
It also has a lot of implication for the economy itself, for productivity, for all of that.
Okay.
So, and that's why we are saying that in the process of reform, all segments of society must pay. Politicians must pay. The business class must pay. You do progressive taxing, the rich pays a little more, so that you can redistribute wealth in a manner that people are at the bottom. So I'm sure, as I said, I like the disposition of Mr. President. This is not going to be one-off. I'm sure leadership of Labour will, on a continuous basis, continue to engage Mr. President to embrace policies that will serve the interests of Nigerians.
Indeed. And really, that's when you look at it, that's why the last caller, Mukhtar in Kano, says Labour and government are partners in progress.
Of course, that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. But on occasion, Labour has been known to do what we interpret as flex a bit. Say, why are you going
There's no flexing. It's just to make the other party realize the pain that we are feeling through and the seriousness with which we want our matters to be looked at.
Well, Mr. Kishi, this is where we wanted to be, isn't it? For Labour and government to not be at odds, and what we've really heard now, that dialogue will resume, and Mr. President, through his public speech, has indicated that this is not just talking for talking's sake. He's been categorical. He's been, specific about those things, all of which must be music to Labour's ears. Although somebody even just added out, don't forget the pensioners. That's another problem. So really, there's not very much more to talk about, but for everybody looking good at the end of the day is my guess.
Which is appreciated. I think it's even good that Labour is amplifying their position about concerning dialogue. I have always insisted that at points like this, partnership, Labour-government partnership is important. But again, talking about cost of government, I sometimes, wonder on what exact template we advance this kind of arguments. We look at cost of government at political appointees alone. And yes, so how do we calculate that? A total of about 150 maximum, and of course that's at the level of the executive arm of government, and you had the 360 plus in the legislative arm. You're not talking of up to 1,000 personnel. So for me, if we are talking about reducing cost of government, we are actually talking about reducing personnel of the federal government. And when you are doing that, it also has implications for labor, because it means that workers would have to be retrenched. If we are spending 70% or more than 70% of our annual budget, on recurrent, and recurrent will mean, of course, personnel and personnel and other forms of allowance. What is the percentage of that budget, recurrent budget, that goes into funding the political arm of government, the politicians in government, and of course the civil service, the civil servants in government? We need to have clarity on that, so that we don't just create a cascading vision of what should be, and it's not actually the truth we are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay then. Engineer Haruna in Delta State, good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Okuyori, and how is everything?
Thank you very much for calling in. We're good.
First of all, appreciate what your wonderful work you people are doing.
Thank you, sir. Carry on, please.
Yeah, good morning, Okuyori.
Yes.
Thank you for the wonderful job you are doing.
You're so kind. Thank you.
First and foremost, Labour is not doing us any good. Truth be told, we are not kids again. Right from the time of President Obasanjo, you did. What has been happening to our refinery in this country? And in the same refinery, we have trade union, Tangason, and so on and so forth. Today, none of them has been able to tell us the stage of job done so far over the current rehabilitation they are doing. And they are there earning their heavy salaries. Labour has not deemed it fit to say, okay, we must fix this refinery, else we will not take it anymore. But because they are taking their salary, they are not affected in any way. But the generality of the country are suffering from this. It's part of what we are facing today. Look at the issue of Ajaokuta. In fact, I look at their case as a conflict of interest. If Labour are to do what they are meant to do, right from Texas, where Oshomole emanated from today, Senator Oshomole emanated from, supposed to work hand in hand with government to make sure these factories, those industries are resuscitated, so that the generality of the public to get work to do. That is the problem. If they are, look at Ajaokuta, if Ajaokuta is up and running today, you know the number of Nigerians that will be engaged, both directly or indirectly.
Okay. Engineer Haruna, I beg your pardon, sir. I'm going to have to interrupt, but thank you very much for calling in. Time is actually at premium. Once more, thank you very much, Engineer Haruna, calling in from Delta State.
I just want to quickly respond on the cost of governance. Maybe it will interest Mr. Kisejo that as a Labour person, I've had engagement with government at the state level, and I've had to have to at the structure of salary of political office holders, vis-a-vis those of them in the public service, civil servants. And I can tell you for free that an SA, a special assistant, will probably take far more than a director, who has far greater responsibility and far greater budget to do. And when you look at it cascade down from the federal to the state to the local to the ward, the people who feed on the state without commensurate contribution is enormous, it's huge. And you also look at our history, where we are coming from part-time legislature to full-time legislature with all the full-time benefits, including pension and gratuity. You had a worker who served 35 years, 30 years, not even able to access decent pension. But you have people who serve for 4 years, 8 years, taking Umugos benefit. So it is an area that government that is seeking reform, a government that is repeatedly saying, I want to serve Nigerians like President Bola Tinubu. It is an area that it must look into if you really want to serve the people and throw the benefit back to the people.
Okay.
All right. It's a very critical area. And then on the issue of pension that the gentleman raised, in our last NEC meeting, because Nigeria Union of Pensioners is an affiliate of the Nigerian Labour Congress. Yes, is an affiliate of the Nigerian Labour Congress. And interestingly, during our meeting, one pensioner who attended that meeting came up and said, we are discussing wages, we are discussing salaries. In all our discussions, we must put the matter of pensioner. So again, the nitty-gritty of dialogue. When we get to that table, all those issues must be factored in. Whether you are doing palliative, whether you are doing health care, whatever you are doing, we must remember
the pensioners.
The pensioners. So, but if you don't create the ambience and the right environment for dialogue, all those critical issues won't filter in.
All right,
and they can never, they can never be addressed.
Thank you very much, Comrade Bello. And over to you now for your closing thoughts, because we've run out of time, Mr. Kishiju. It looks like all's well that ends well. He's explained that well, as Labour, we needed to create the environment where all of our issues will be taken seriously, and I think you don't get much more serious than Labour leaders meeting with Mr. President, which indeed has happened, and they got a very, very good response, so much so that they set up an extraordinary National Executive Council meeting where they'll be going through the process, explaining what had happened, and then I suppose we're coasting home, we're high and dry. So maybe in a sense, all's well that ends well, there won't be any disruption to the economy and to our lives, right, Mr. Kishiju?
We are thankful going forward, just like you noted, all is well that ends well. But for me, the important thing is that we should not just be hearing about Labour, getting to see Labour activating its strength and energy when there seems to be a case of what do I call it, contradictions and confrontation. It's important Labour continues to be a part of our everyday existence, because what the union stands for is not just about negotiating wages and salaries. It is also about monitoring what government is doing on behalf of the workers. And at every point in time, proper, appropriate research works, opinion on rules, on policies and regulations should be.
As I say, thank you very much to you in our Abuja studio. And I also thank...
maybe my last word.
I didn't give you last word, sir.
Maybe my last word is to say that ordinary Nigerians, ordinary workers shouldn't be made to bear the cost of reform.
Okay.
It should be spread across the segment of society so that the ordinary people.
Comrade Ismail Bello, Deputy General Secretary, NLC. Thank you very much. Thank you very much also, Mr. Kishiju, for your time as well. That's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.